How do I best support my 3-year-old's fine motor development when they're left-handed? Hi, I'm Holly. As a pediatric occupational therapist, I help simplify child development for toddler mamas like myself so we can enjoy more free and colorful play and truly rediscover the wonder of these little years. Today I'm talking with Brittany from Play the OT Way about left-handed fine motor development as well as pre-writing skills. Now, if you want to learn more about toddler development as a whole, don't forget to grab my free toddler developmental milestone charts, which are linked below. So today we are chatting with Brittany from Play the OT Way about left-handed fine motor skills for 3-year-olds. Brittany is a pediatric occupational therapist and also a mama to a very free-spirited 3-year-old. She loves making activities that busy families can do. Brittany, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to share my knowledge and some of the fun activities I do, and really excited to.
Yeah. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about the work that you do?
Yeah. So I am currently a teletherapy occupational therapist. Previously, before all of this pandemic, I was working in an outpatient setting. My caseload was anywhere from like 1 year old up to like 18, 19. Mm-hmm. So have that whole like age span. Previously, before this job, I was doing school-based, and I was mainly in the pre-K rooms. Okay. So I had my little 3-year-old all the way to 5. So this is
it's so nice, I think, also to have that experience of working with older kids, because sometimes that like retrospective looking back on different functioning and the way our occupations develop can be really helpful.
It is. And sometimes you're like, oh, okay. Why can't we need to take a step back now because of you can't do this. And this is something that you're supposed to be able to master by this age. So it's nice to be able to focus for the younger kids too. So it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And Brittany also shares like amazing activity ideas and also especially teletherapy ideas over on her website and her Instagram page. And we'll have all those links below as well.
Hope you check it out. It's super fun.
Yeah. It's a special skill, I think, managing like the screen time with a child and getting them engaging.
It is. It's fun.
So today, one of the questions the question that we're answering came in from my audience, and that is how to best support a 3-year-old's fine motor and pencil grip development if they are left-handed. So I wonder if you could just give us a bit of a background on when you would know if your child really is left or right-handed.
So children start developing a hand preference anywhere from 1 to 2, and typically most children will have that dominant hand by age 4. There are going to be some kids that are outliers and that hand dominance isn't established until like 5 or 6. But whenever they get into school, most of the time when they have to like kindergarten, they have to like pick a hand. And so whenever they start writing, coloring, all of that, how you can tell if they're going to be right hand or left-handed is when they're feeding or playing. Which one are they, like which hand are they going to grab for that toy or pick up their little Cheerios to feed themselves? At that age, though, they do switch hands still. So you're going to be able to tell if it's their dominant hand, if it's what they use the most. So switching hands up until some research says like 4, some research says 6. So in that 4 to 6 window, switching hands is still typical.
Yeah. And I think that that's such a good point, because as parents kind of, we can have the freedom to know that if they're switching hands and if a dominant hand hasn't been really chosen and is super obvious yet, that that's completely okay when we're still in the 3-year-old bunch. And that actually that switching of hands is a way that they're developing that preference. So what kind of milestones would we be expecting to see in a 3-year-old? Like, never mind left or right-handed, but generally for drawing, writing, pre-writing, coloring, pencil grip, say, what kind of
All of
milestones do
that.
we normally, all the things with the
All
hands.
the fun things.
What do we
So,
normally see happening in that age group of 3-year-olds, or up until 3?
so 3 is such a like fun age because they're either going to be in the first half, they still should be able to do structured like scribbling, color a picture. It's going to be in a very like targeted area. Not saying that they're going to be coloring in the lines at this point in time, like that's not age appropriate. So you should be able to see them start imitating horizontal lines as well as vertical lines. Some are going to be a little bit more advanced in being able to draw a circle. Some are still just going to be in that scribbling phase. The grasp, let me grab. I only have a marker, but
Okay.
I can still show you. So we are going to still see at some points that like that fisted grasp, because some kids, especially if they've not been exposed to crayons or markers or any type of writing tool, they're going to do this. A lot of times you're going to have that distal grasp where it's starting to become closer to the tripod, but and then you'll have some other like things in between. At this age, kids are not expected to have that perfect tripod grasp. So I do try to facilitate that motor pattern. So I use these little crayons, and they're called crayon rocks. They're the coolest things ever because you cannot hold it incorrectly. So I've actually bought some for my own 3-year-old, and she's able to like really color well with those. My philosophy is little tools for little hands.
I love that. Yeah, this is really interesting because I think in the 3-year-old, like up until 3, we kind of do accept that they're like scribbling and that they don't need to color within the lines and that they don't need to draw these perfect shapes. But when they get to 3, we often kind of think, well, this is like preschool academic. They need to be learning things, at least writing like some ABCs or shapes or whatever. But when you actually break it down to the milestones of what their hand positions should be looking like, what they are able to imitate or copy, it's a lot simpler.
It is, because I mean, from my own experience as a mother, my daughter is in the 3-year-old room over, and she's having to trace her name, and she has all these diagonal lines and all of this. I'm like, you're not supposed to be doing this yet. So I mean, it's very interesting because they push those academics so early.
Yeah. And at least we can know that at home we can really focus in on just the simple stuff. And, you know, I think sometimes what we miss is we say, okay, fine, circles, but how many times can we draw a circle? But actually, there's so much happening within that circle drawing, because it's this time we're drawing it with that short crayon, and this time we're drawing it with a marker. So this is like using my hands so differently. And this time we're drawing one big circle, and this time it's a medium circle with 2 circles inside because it's an apple tree or a face or whatever. And all of those small little tweaks are the way that they're learning how to hold the pencil, sizing of different things in relation to their body. Like, there's just so much to be learned in these simple things of drawing circles and lines. And
I always love doing it with chalk and those window markers, because if you can let them color on that vertical space, that's going to help so much with those motor skills, and that especially those fine motor skills. And I always tell my parents, give your children chalk or crayons, because they're getting so much feedback from that, and it's creating all those cool motor pathways in the brain. So
yeah, and that's actually such an interesting thing that you're talking about, the motor pathways and the pencil grip, because sometimes I see parents like very focused in on that pencil grip and wanting to correct it, and they correct the wrong way, right? So what does that do in terms of the motor pathways for the brain?
Exactly. Like, it gets the kids all confused, and then they tend to not even want to do writing because it's hard. And their brain's like, I hold it like this, but mom told me to hold it a different way. Like, which way's correct? And the brain's like just fighting with it, with
Definitely.
itself.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And then they also pick up all these, like, when we push them too far into things that are not necessarily developmentally appropriate, they pick up all these little tweaks and things that are so hard to undo in therapy.
it is. It's so true.
So specifically with left-handed kids, is there, so you've talked a bit about like just using like little tools for little hands and focusing in on those simple kind of shapes and coloring in like a space, but not getting too focused on going out of the lines. For left-handed children specifically, is there any like more focus points or things that are important to take note of?
So for me, I feel like for children that are left-handed, it's hard for them because the world is designed for right-handed people. So I focus more on like the structure of the hand and developing all the muscles for the hand, which once they're ready, then when we put a pencil in and show them how to hold it, especially whenever it's left-handed, then they're going to feel more confident. And so what I like to do is my favorite tool, it's like, I call it my desert island therapy tool. It's just Play-Doh. So many families have Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Or if they don't have Play-Doh, you can make Play-Doh. And that making the Play-Doh is so great for your hands anyways. Like, it's such a huge thing. But I just want my kids to find like beads in the Play-Doh and make footprints with their toys and like different things like that, where it just seems like they're playing, but they're working those muscles in that hand so hard. And that building and that strengthening is so important for both left and right. But I think it's a little bit easier for righties to be able to do the coloring and the lines first, because also you have to think about, for the lefties, their hand is covering what they're supposed to be like coloring a lot of the time. And then when you also have the compensation of like a hook grasp, like your wrist is not supposed to look like this when you're writing or coloring because they can't see. So developing those muscles and that motor pathway of like, oh, I can do it this way, I'm going to strengthen this way, prior to putting like pen to paper. I just think it's really important. Stickers also. I love me some stickers. And we go through so many stickers in my house because you're having to like use very fine, precise movements. And you have to have that fine, precise movement for writing too. So those are my two favorite activities with lefty.
I think that's so important, like to really understand that the hand has so much to develop before it starts writing. And like, especially with like you're saying, that the environment isn't necessarily built for them, like all those worksheets that they have to kind of is like the wrong side around for their hand. I think also we get like with that correcting thing, especially with left-handed children, that there's like incorrect correction of how they're holding things, because we try to like think of it of how a right hand looks, but actually it looks a little bit different on the left side. Yeah, I love these ideas. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience about hand development, left-handedness?
So I love to include like bead stringing. That's and bilateral, meaning both hands. Doing things with both hands, because even though you are like left hand dominant, your right hand is just as important, and vice versa. If you're a righty, your left hand is very important for everything. Just think about how many times as a parent you're using two hands. So I just think it's very important to do like making sure you're doing ball skills, throwing and catching. You're having your child use different toys where they use both hands, because I think as therapists, we think a little bit differently. And parents definitely just focusing on, oh, I need them to be able to write because kindergarten's coming up and they need to write their name. And we just focus on the hand instead of how they work together and how the whole body works together. So
yeah, definitely. These are such good points. I think for me as well as a therapist, like whenever often a parent will come forward with like a concern about not drawing shapes or writing letters at these like young ages. And my biggest concern is if they're not stabilizing the bowl when they're eating with their second hand, like that interaction of both hands and both sides of the body is just so much more foundational. And if that's not there, the writing is almost irrelevant at this point. Like we really want to get that there.
Because really and truly, in the long run, like writing it's important. It's very important, but the life skills and being able to function in your environment and children playing, like if you don't have that, then what do you have?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I found this so interesting, Brittany. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your knowledge and your activity ideas. We have all the links below, but do you want to tell the audience where they can find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at playtheotway. I also have a website, playtheotway.com. And then I also am a Teachers Pay Teacher seller, and it's Teachers Pay Teachers /play the OT way. So I'm in multiple places.
Great. That's so fun. Thank you so much for being with us, Brittany.
Thank you for having me.
Great information about how to help your left-handed toddler develop those early pre-writing skills. Now, if you want to learn more about pre-writing skills, click on the video that is on your screen now, and don't forget about those developmental charts that are below.